Amen.
Amen.
Oh. Welcome, folks. Today's learning is in honor of the hostages that need to be returned, in honor of the 6 that were returned not the way we had hoped. And painful and devastating. And the best thing we can do for them is to learn together to do a mitzvah. And to begin with a Kapitel Tillim, Kapitel Chaf, chapter 20 in Tehillim. What I should do is try to get it on the screen over here. I'll get it. I have to work that out. That it should be on for every class, actually. Should do it before every class. So we gave tzedakah over here. Everybody at home, if you have a charity box, take a coin, put it into the charity box. Okay, what I'm going to do. And we can say together, Lam Natseyach Mizmar LeDavid Yancha Adinoi Beyoim Tzara Yisagevcha Shem Elahei Yaakov Yishlach Ezracha Mikaidish Ometzion Yisadeka. I'm going to skip a few lines. Hema Karo Binafalu Vanachnu Kamnu Venisaidad Adonai Haishia Hamelech Yanenu V'yom Karenu.
Amen.
Save us, the King, answer us on the day that we cry out to him. All right. Obviously, we need to do more Tillim and more tzedakah, although it's definitely done miracles till now. So it's interesting that tonight's topic, we need to tie in with the current events. Figure out how. It'll tie in. It has to. Because the Torah is eternal, and there is an eternal message. So somehow it for sure ties in. We continue with Moshe preparing the Jewish people to enter into Eretz Yisrael, and particularly about the military efforts that they need to engage in. That's what this week's Parsha, a large portion of, or a portion at least of the laws in this week's Parsha entail. The laws of waging war. And there's something quite fascinating. Let's share the screen. They're up there? Yeah? Okay. So when you besiege a city for many days to wage war against it, to conquer it, you shall not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them, for you may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. For is a tree of the field a person to be besieged by you? However, a tree that you know is not a fruit tree, you may destroy and cut it down. And you shall build bulwarks against the city that makes war with you until you conquer it. So pretty straightforward, right? That the Torah is telling us, forbidden to cut down a fruit-bearing tree, right? But what's pretty unusual is, we've been learning for a while. I mean, for a long time, we've been learning the Torah portion, and the Torah is asking, like, are you waging war against a fruit tree? No, you're waging war against people, right? So don't take it out on the fruit tree, right? You can eat from it, but you can't cut it down, right? Need to cut down? Take a non-bearing fruit tree, cut that down if you need it for, to weaponize yourself. in order to lay siege on the city and to conquer the city. Pretty simple, right? Although, again, the nuance key, Adam Eitz Sada, like, why do we have such a statement? Pretty unusual, kind of outlandish statement if you think about it, Like what? Did you ever think that we were like a fruit tree? That the Torah had to say that, that you're gonna have a battle against a fruit tree? Right. So that's the simple meaning, right? Right. That again, I want to make sure the nuance is clear in the verse. What's the verse saying? Is the tree of the field a person, right? That you should fight it, right? You wage a war against people, right? Not against trees. That's what the verse is saying, right? Is that clear? Right? Okay, make sure that was clear.
Yeah, that's right there.
Okay, good. So the Talmud picks up on this phrase, and again, because of its its uniqueness, it's like it's saying darsheni, which means expound upon me. Give me more here. There's something more going on here, right? And of course, simple meaning is a simple meaning, and the homiletic meaning is the homiletic meaning, right? Meaning the darshan, the way you expound on it, not the simple, taking it out of its context, right? And the Talmud uses it as a metaphor. And the Talmud says as follows. What is the meaning of the verse? A tree is a tree of the field a person, right? So is a human being actually a tree of the field? Talmud is now asking, right? Is it actually a field that the Torah has to say that, right? That, in other words, you really would think that? Oh, no person is like a tree. The explanation is as follows. One verse says, for you may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. Another verse says, you may destroy and cut them down. How so? So if a Torah scholar is refined, you may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. And if the Torah scholar is not refined, you may destroy and cut down. So what's going on over here? First of all, so the sages are saying, oh, a person is a tree of the field, right? Torah is telling us not the tree of the field, right? So don't cut it down. Cut down your enemy, but don't cut down a fruit-bearing tree. Talmud is saying, oh, no, it is a fruit-bearing. It asks actually a question, is it, actually, first it asks the question, like, why would the Torah come in and suggest that we're like a tree? And in the end, what does it say? Oh, we are like a tree. Because a scholar who has goods, who is proper, who is refined, then that's like a fruit-bearing tree that you can take from its fruit. Don't cut it down, meaning you can learn from that person. But someone who doesn't bear, right, doesn't have refined quality, then they don't bear fruit that you should take from them, and you should cut them down. In other words, don't learn from them. So in the end, what are we? We are a tree, according to the Talmud. So if in the end we are like a tree, what was its question initially? It had a havamina that we're not a tree, right? It had an initial thought that we're not a tree. And the conclusion is we are like a tree. So why were you thinking that we're not like a tree? That you have to conclude that we are like a tree? Oh, what's going on over here, right? There's a nuance over here. It's not, and we have to appreciate it in nuance. And okay, that's good for a scholar, but how about you and I? We're regular folk, right? So if a person is like a tree, is it only the scholar that's like a tree? But a person's like a tree. So how does that fit in with all of us? Maybe would be scholars, but it's got to talk to us too. Okay, so we got a whole exchange over here we need to understand. Sorry?
What we are capable of?
There's a family tree.
Well, 1 second. Let's learn what we're learning and make sure we understand what we're learning and not like you're bringing something that's not what it said here. Not that we said was wrong. Family tree, we call it, right? But that's not what the Talmud is saying. Didn't say family tree, right? In the story of the family tree, right? In your family tree, remember your great uncle. Well, he's not on the family tree because he was a horse thief. So he fell off the family tree. He didn't bear fruit. Okay. But again, within the context of what the Talmud is saying, we have to understand in its teachings, right? It's bringing down a verse from the Torah that it says a question, and now it's questioning why would the Torah think that we are like a tree? And in the end, it tells us, yeah, we're like a tree, but yet only scholars are like a tree. What does that mean? How about us? And then why did it think to say that we're not like a tree, but in the end decides that we are like a tree? So obviously there's something here beyond, that we need to appreciate. Okay, we're clear on the question. I'm gonna make sure it's emphatic. The question. No, don't try to go to the answer. Make sure that the question is very emphatic because then you'll appreciate the answer afterwards, which you're gonna wow. Okay, but if you already clouded because you think you have the answer, right? That means the question, first of all, not emphatic enough, let it bother you so much so that if I end right here, you're going to be upset. What's the answer? I want to make sure the question's clear. Yes? Yeah? Sharon, we're good?
How are we like trees?
Well, I mean, that is a question. Well, we gave the Talmud said we're, the difference between a scholar who's refined and not refined, right? Huh? But the question is, it says a person's like a tree. It didn't say scholars like a tree merely, right? So it has to be a message for all of us. So we need to understand that.
It's a question. Why doesn't it mention only scholars? Why person?
Well, how does it apply? I mean, the answer through scholars will perhaps need to apply to us. So we need to understand how so, right? But that was the second question. The first question is, it asks the question, is a person like a tree? And then it gives an answer, it is like a tree. So what was your question? Just give us the answer. So what was the question if you are already giving the answer? So there's something more here that meets the eyes, okay? Okay, let's go to the next reading that we will see how the hierarchy of the universe got created. Text number 3. It's clear? See it? There's a popular idea about the notion of 4 categories. Medaber, human, which literally means speaker, communicator. 2 is a chai, is an animal. Tzemeach, plants. Daimon, the lowest category. Daimon is nothing more than what the name implies, an inanimate object. The next category, Tzemeach, possesses greater life energy than Domin. That's inanimate, like a rock, right? Which is why members of this category grow. Nevertheless, it possesses elements of a domim as well. As a tree or a plant is inherently an inanimate object. It is only because it has an additional quality of daimon, over daimon rather, the quality of growth, that it is called a tzemeach. Right? Not alive like the next category, which is a chai. Contains within it all the qualities of a daimon, a tzemeach, and in addition, it has the faculties of consciousness, desire, independent movement. It is because of these additional faculties that it is called chai, literally mean life. But it also retains all the elements of the lower levels rather. Creatures in this category of a chai also have the faculty of growth, which is a primary characteristic of tzameah, right? Animals grow. Little babies, they grow into, They also contain inanimate objects, such as bones. Similarly, the medaber contains all the lower levels, but has an additional faculty of intelligence and speech. Oh, see, oops. All right. Clear? Now, think for a moment, put your thinking cap, and this will help you to lose some calories from the cake. In what way is it tzomeach, something that grows, greater than even a medaber, than us, you and I? In what way?
Fruits,
Huh?
bears fruits.
Oh, you have children, you bear fruit. You bear you have children, you bear fruit.
It can grow in so many different situations.
Right. So can we. So can we. So can we.
We depend on them.
Yeah, no, that's not my question. That's not the question, though. You're 100%. Of course, we depend on them. We wouldn't have life if we don't. Right, 100%. That's not the question. And what is unique about it versus the human?
It doesn't speak, it doesn't make choices, it can't make enemies, it stays put.
It doesn't make enemies. Okay, right? Okay.
Consistency.
Somewhere it stays put, it stays.
Go a little deeper into that. Yes, you're saying good. You're saying good. It's always attached to its roots. Are we? No. You could walk away from your family. You can walk away from your faith. You can walk away from Torah and mitzvahs. You can walk away from God. A tree can't walk away from its roots. It's no longer a tree, right? As a tree, it can't. That's unique about a tree, right? Or all vegetation, but particularly a tree, right? Always connected. Is there anything else in creation also has that kind of quality? Connected to its source. Huh? Soul, excellent. Soul is not part of creation, it's part of God. So sorry, but good try. No, it's correct what you said, but it's not part of creation, it's a piece of God in creation, right?
Human beings.
Huh?
Human beings, mankind. Because we
Yeah, everything is connected with God. There's nothing outside of God, right? But not on a, we're also connected to God, right? But visibly, a tree, a plant is always connected to its roots. It always is, right?
Words have root words.
I'm talking in creation, not in ideas. Another is fish. Fish are always in their habitation. They're always in water. They only survive in their environment. Now, we also, if we didn't have oxygen, we wouldn't survive in our environment, but it's not noticeable, our environment, that we are surviving because of our environment. Fish, it's noticeable. Take them out, they die. Right? By essence, that we don't, it's right. So they are in their environment, totally submerged in their environment, right? Totally connected. More than a tree. A tree, it's its roots that are connected. The fish, it's in entirety connected. Therefore, a fish is the idea of total connection to God. And that's why when it comes to Shabbos, if you only can have fish or meat, have fish instead. Because what's Shabbos? Total submersion in our source in God. The world is elevated. We're elevated. in such a manner, total submersion. Now, spiritually, not to the physical naked eye, we don't experience that in that manner unless we're very holy people, but that's the concept of it. And therefore, being that fish are, Jacques Cousteau was, there's a whole world under the sea, right? That's true. It's a hidden world because it's submerged in its source. Shabbos, we're submerged in our source in spirit. Therefore, eating fish is the most important thing besides, of course, Kiddush and Challah, right? Aside from that, if you only had one thing, fish would probably be, unless you don't like fish, by the way, because you're supposed to have the pleasure from your food. Assuming that you have equal pleasure in all foods, then fish would be the concept, right? Total submersion. It has no sense of its independence, so to speak, right? Is that clear? It's sort of like, when you daydream about your, family get together, and you think it in your mind, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call and you pick up the phone, the thought evaporates, it's all gone. The whole world was submerged in your mind. You created a whole scene, whole family gathering, and it was all part of you, right? Now, as human beings, we have a sense of our independence, correct? We feel our independence. And the reason for that is in order so that we should discover, right, through our journey in life, that we are connected. We're connected. How are we connected? This exactly makes a tzameach unique vis-a-vis a fish. They grow away from their source above the ground, certainly trees, which grow to be very tall, and yet they always remain connected through their roots to their source, namely the ground, and its power to generate growth. So trees kind of combine the human element that we're separate and the fish element that's always connected. Right? That makes sense? And therefore, we should be recognized like the tree that we have deep roots in our connection. And never forget, as tall and as great as you become, that you are firmly implanted and connected. Make sense? Okay, but what does it mean? How do you understand that? So, as we know, the Talmud tells us that a person is an olam katan. He's a microcosm of the entire universe, right? Which means we have everything about us in the universe. Talmud tells us. Talmud says everything that God created in the world, he created in his likeness in human beings. He created for us in the world, and he created for us in human beings. That is a person's hair, and some people's hair is like a forest. Okay, we won't go around and say anything. He created scent in the world. He created scent in human beings. That is their noses. Salt water in the world, salt water in human beings. That is tears in their eyes. Fresh water in the world, fresh water in human beings. That is person's saliva. Wood in the world, wood in the human being. That is person's bones. Now that you have seen how everything that God created in the world, he created his likeness in a human being. Now that's on the physical, but also in the metaphysical and the spiritual. In other words, whatever is in the physical world is in us, just the same. And if anything, on the contrary, it begins in us. And because there's that element in us, hence there is that element in the world. Right? Why? Because we're the whole point of creation, right? The point of creation isn't that God wants to be a tree hugger, right? He wants us to be that tree hugger. He wants us to be the tree. Okay, let's see what that means. Just as a medaber, a human being contains the other three levels, daimon sameach chai, on the physical level, so does the soul contain all four levels. Daimim is inanimate, sameach is plants, chai, medaber. All right, good, great job. Okay, the most outward levels of the soul's expression, thought, speech, and action are daimon. After all, once something has been thought, that same thought cannot grow into a different thought. You can have a different thought, but it's not that thought. That thought is just that thought, right? Those words are just those words. You may want to modify your words afterwards. Like it happens, be careful when you say your words, right? Words come out, it's hard to bring them back, right? It's hard to bring them back. Why? It's like stones that have just, as they say, hit the fan. Once something has been said, those words cannot grow or change into something else. Now, you might want to come back and modify what you meant, but those are new words. But those words were those words, right? It's impossible to think or say something else. But when a new expression of the soul's essence and the initial thought or speech remains the same. So in other words, it can't grow. It's inanimate. It is what it is, right? Emotions are tzameach because they grow. Children feel emotionally drawn to insignificant things. As they grow older, our emotions grow and mature with us. Even as adults, our emotions start off small and gradually develop into greater, more passionate feelings. So tree is like our emotions. They grow. Like as we say, you're growing on me. What does that mean? What does that mean? Emotionally, I feel more connected to you. That's what it means, right? That's what it means. You're not saying intellectually. You're not saying my words, right? You're saying emotionally, right? That's what it means. Intellect is chai. As the verse says, wisdom gives life. And chai means a living creature of life. Medaber is a level of keser, which is above intellect. So let's break this down a bit. Okay. So we said medaber is keser. Keser means crown, meaning beyond intellect, right? We're not defined by intellect. We're not defined by any of this. We're beyond that ultimately, in a sense, right? In our soul. Our soul is made up of intelligence. It's made up of emotions, but that's all what is the soul. The soul is beyond that, right? It's not defined by it. It has qualities of intellect and of emotion, but it's ultimately beyond that, right? And of course, the other three qualities come from it, okay? Which chai, intellect. What's pure intellect? Pure intellect, not an intellect that's based on emotion, right? But intellect is such that I could give you 49 reasons why this is pure and 49 reasons why this is impure. And you could understand it all because intellect can roam from this side of the room to that side of the room and go back and forth, right? When you go into a yeshiva and you see yeshiva students arguing back and forth, right? With argument based on intelligence, right? The arguments will go and bounce back. They'll roam. They won't be rooted because you can then just slug it up right after that with a counter argument. Just like an animal that roams. That clear? Make sense?
No, you just stated high,
Hmm?
referring to intelligence.
Chai is intelligence, but chai is an animal, right?
Okay.
Human is beyond intelligence, is soul. Animal is intelligence. Animals have intelligence, right? Minimal compared to us, but they have more than the tree, right? Tree doesn't have intelligence. That's why animals roam, is because they're not rooted. Right now we're bringing the metaphor in it, but that metaphor is now they're a living being based on this concept, right? It's not like they became animals and they roam. Oh, and intelligence also. No. It's because this is what the nature of intelligence is. This is what they are, and therefore they roam, right? Because that's the nature of intelligence. Yeah. Now, you can have someone who is very intelligent and make their argument only one-sided. That's because they have an agenda that's not based on intelligence, right? They have an agenda. And whatever that agenda is, they'll only see that side of the argument, right? And they'll only argue that side. That's not pure intelligence. That's intelligence that's being focused by an agenda that they have, right? Which most people, that's what they do. But I'm talking about pure intelligence, isn't that? Right? That's why you can have an argument, 49 reasons why this is pure and 49 reasons why this is impure. And going back and forth, right? That your head will swivel and you're going to get, that's what Jews do, right? Again, that's animal. Then you have daimim, inanimate, a thought. Not the impact of a thought and not the impact of your words, right? But the word itself is lifeless. That's why there's a saying you probably heard once: sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Names don't have to hurt you because they're just words. They're inanimate. They hurt us because of our emotions. They hurt us because of the triggers that we have emotionally, but the word itself is nothing, right? It's inanimate, has no power, right? The king has a power because his word will be off with his head, so your head's off. Okay. That's because the action that was taken because of that by his soldiers, right? But the word itself is inanimate. It's nothing. It doesn't even grow because that word is just that word. That's all it is. That thought is just that thought. You can now, I said, well, I said this, but I really meant. Now you're modifying. You're not, but those words were those words. They can't grow. They can't evolve. They can only evolve because you took those words and now you're sitting in it and giving free rent in your head because your loved one said something to you that hurts you, and you giving free rent and allowing that negativity to live in you. Fools that you are, because you do free rent. If the person was paying and you got money for being negative about that person and thinking about that person, and how could they dare say that to me? How could they dare do that to me? Right? But the words themselves are nothing. They're inanimate. Your emotions made it into something. That clear?
Very much.
Okay.
If words are inanimate, they don't mean anything.
I said, no, I didn't say they're not. The words themselves are inanimate. They can mean a lot. Of course, that's impact. That's impact. That's not the words themselves. That's the meaning of the words, but words themselves are nothing, right? In and of them themselves, they're inanimate. That's the point. You give meaning to them. That's why I say because of the trigger that you have emotionally, that this triggered you, and therefore you are now giving the free rent because that person did something, said something nasty. Why is it nasty? Why is it for another person the same words are not nasty? For you, it's nasty. Because you put your emotions, your negative emotions you put there. That other person didn't put the negative emotions. They just heard inanimate words. Because that's what they are, in fact. They're inanimate. They're lifeless in and of themselves. They can't even grow, right? They can't even grow, let alone be like a roaming animal, right? Is that clear?
Love that.
Exactly. That's it. No more negative thoughts. Yeah. By the way, just try it once. And that person that said something nasty, and for a whole day you've been thinking about it and it's in your head, you got to knock on their door and say, you owe me $1,532 for rent.
I put on that one. Yeah.
Good, good. Okay. So tzameach, as we said, is emotions. They grow. When we're little, our emotions are small. We get triggered by little things. And then we mature, we get triggered by little things, and we make big things out of it. Right? Emotions are connected to their source. Right? What does that mean? It's connected to our identity. It's connected to the depths of who I am. Right? Imagine you devote your life to something. You devote your life to something, and all of a sudden, you hear a lecture by somebody who was knocking it all down. Right? So what might you do? Right? What might you do? You would quite likely have cognitive dissonance, right? You mentally remove yourself from what that person said. The person's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Not that you can disprove the person because you don't have the mental aptitude to do it. The person had a strong argument, but it's knocking something that's deep rooted in your belief system, right? So you're going to knock the person, not what they said, right? Like in politics, that's most people do. Sometimes they actually knock their political agenda, but usually they knock the person, right? So it's cognitive dissonance. I have to disassociate myself from what's being said because emotionally I'm so rooted in this belief that I have, whatever it is. It could be you're an environmentalist. It could be because you're woke. It could be because you are a Nazi, right? And I say whatever deep-rooted belief system that you have. And all of a sudden, it's being knocked. Whatever belief system that you have that's deep-rooted emotionally, right, that you're connected to it, you're going to have to, the one who is making an intelligent argument, you're going to have to knock them. Say, well, it's not the truth. It's, or you're going to somehow have to make a mental disconnect from them and what they're saying in order that you can stay firmly rooted in your beliefs, right? Another way that we see this is that we all have a natural emotional makeup, right? To change that emotional makeup, it's very difficult. Why is it difficult? Because our emotions are deeply connected to the root of who we are. Yeah. Let me just finish this. Okay. Yeah, just put it on speakerphone. Let me say hello to Marilyn. She's my friend. Just leave on. Marilyn. So this is also why emotional tendencies are so immutable. So much so that it is very difficult to change them. It is very difficult for a person who's naturally kind to become disciplinarian and vice versa, right? It's very difficult. One or the other. Well, it's a long time. It's good to have you here. Welcome to Sunday nights to Torah studies. So whatever your natural emotional makeup, right? If you're lazy, it's hard not to become lazy. If you are, I'm lazy, but I have created a schedule in such a way that I can't be lazy until I have the free time to be lazy, which is not that often, not that often, but not because my nature is not to be lazy. So I don't have the time or the schedule that I have that much time to be lazy. But my nature is my nature, right? Perhaps it's been somewhat honed a little more refined. But yeah, I'm not about wishing, I don't have a Aladdin's lamp over here that I could do that. But we are what we are in character, emotional makeup. To change any of that is extremely, extremely difficult. Now, with this, we'll go in. Well, Judy, you're
Is that not arrogant?
yeah, that's the. Yeah, it might be. It's an imitation of him.
So that means therapy would never work.
Huh?
That means therapy wouldn't work.
And usually it doesn't. What therapy doesn't change you emotionally, it changes your behavior. Behavior is not your emotions. Behavior is not your emotions.
Once your behavior changes.
Let's get clear what we're talking about, though. To change your behavior or to reframe something. Reframing is intelligence, right? Or your mind or your thought process. In other words, you might see the cup half empty. That's the way you perceive the world.
That's your perception.
That's your perception. But you could reframe that by mentally choosing to think differently. But that's your thoughts. That's not your emotions, right? But if your emotions are, that you get frustrated very easily. You get angry very
Frustration
easily.
is not an emotion.
Anger. Okay. Anger, right? Anyway, whatever the emotion that you, right, that a person has, changing it, right, being it's rooted, it's like the tree that's rooted. It has strong roots. To change it is not so simple.
No, but
Okay. I didn't say no. I didn't say it can't be done. I didn't say those words. I said it's very hard. It's very, very hard. Very hard.
Modify.
Right. Yeah, it could be modified. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
And say I'm not emotionally correct. I'm not emotionally satisfied with the way my emotions are right now.
Right.
What can I do and how can I
Right.
modify that? How can I change it even though it's so ingrained?
So we're going to learn a bit about that.
Hey, let me say goodbye to Sharon. I'm sorry, but
I know, but I'm saying goodbye on behalf of Sharon, and she'll speak to you soon, okay? Call her in about half an hour. Be well.
Oops.
Sharon, why didn't you invite her?
We wouldn't get.
Now you can invite her for next week.
Now that's a thought.
That's right.
That thought is going to generate perhaps into action.
Oh, now you're talking shit. Okay, let's go back to the Talmudic back and forth. So a human being has intellectual faculties, which is called the chai, right? Right, life, like an animal, right? Emotional faculties that are tzumeya, right? In general, what's our greatest quality? Intelligence. Intelligence, right? That's our greatest quality. Huh?
Six. Yeah, our intellect.
Our intellect is, yeah, it is.
Intellect
most
is
people
what
are
we can
intelligent.
really work with, yeah.
So, okay. How many fingers do I have up?
I can't see, remember?
Okay. Can you all hear? Okay, good. All right. The greatest quality we have, people would suggest, is our intelligence. Yes. And yet, what does the Torah tell us? Adam ke'etz hasada. A person is like a tree in the field. This is the Talmud's question. Remember, we asked why are they asking the question, and then they say, yeah, we're like a tree. This is what you want to say about a human being? That they're like a tree in the field, that emotions is the main thing? Isn't it intelligence? Isn't it intelligence? That's the question, right? How could we suggest that it should be emotions?
Can I just ask you how the plant relates to emotions again?
It's rooted, it's strongly rooted. Emotions are strongly rooted in who we are, right? We're not changing the emotions so easily, right? Easily. Give that one over to Marilyn, please. This is the Talmud's question. It says the Rebbe in this week's Sicha, is the tree of the field a person? It's true, a human being has certain aspects in which he can be similar to a tree, growth, emotions, but are they really defining characteristic of a human being? That's the question. Is that really what defines? The answer is animals' emotions are just emotions, right? Our emotions are not just emotions. Why?
We're into it. Complicated.
Exactly. Not complicated. No, we could complicate it, but no, exactly what you said before you went and said too much. Because of our intellect guides our emotions. Animals are not guided by their intellect, right? They're not guided by it, but we could be like an animal and not be guided by our intellect, or we could be like a human being that we have intellect and we will guide our emotions, right? So we have the quality of intellect of Chai and emotions of Sameach, and to be truly human is you have to employ both, right? But what's the tachlis? What's the purpose? This is interesting. Chapter 3 of Tanya. What does the Alter Rebbe call intelligence? Anybody remember? Chapter 3 of Tanya calls them mothers. Why? What do mothers do? Huh?
Teach.
No,
Teach.
mothers give birth. That's why they're a mother. So what does intellect do? Gives birth to what?
Actions.
Hmm? Emotions. That's what makes us human. Gives birth to emotions. That's what intelligence does. That's the purpose of intelligence, is to mother and to coddle the emotions with intelligence. Don't be like an animal and don't use your intelligence and just go on your base animal instinctual emotions. Be guided by your intellect, that it will mother and give birth to proper, appropriate emotions. This is the real you. The ultimate goal of the human intellect is that it should affect their emotions, that their emotions should be dictated by intellect. This is specifically the ultimate height the human being can reach. Wow. So put it in pure, simple English, folks, the height of intellect is the achievement, is not the achievement of intellect. Because the achievement of intellect itself, you know what you will become? One word. You've heard it from me before and you'll hear it again. One word you'll become, not a nice one. A Nazi. You become a Nazi. The height of intellect as an end in itself, and not as a mother, you become a Nazi because you have an agenda, and with your intellect, you're going to follow and only see one-sided perspective, and it will guide you through and through with the power of the intellect, with the power of your will, of creating a pure race for 1,000 years, and you'll do everything that's necessary to get to your goal. And they were the most intelligent people, the greatest in the arts, the greatest in the sciences, the greatest of all society in that era, but they depraved to the worst, because the whole point of intelligence is to guide the emotions, that the emotions should be appropriate emotions based on the truth of intelligence, not the power of the will of the individual. Is that clear?
Is it that they were considered to be emotionless?
Well, it makes you in the end emotionless, or you become emotional only in that which will achieve the will that you have, right? So if it fits in with your will, then you'll have emotion in that area. And if it doesn't, right? Exactly what's going on, what happened to the hostages just a couple of days ago by people who are guided by a pure will of evil that guides them, right?
But then doesn't that also make the individual, or that person who has this perspective, almost animalistic in mindset? It's almost as though they're acting on instinct, that they're so intellectual that they have actually retrograde.
No, this is worse than animalistic. Because animalistic is not driven by a higher vision. It's just driven by survival, right? This is driven by ideological. It's ideological. It's not driven by, right. Animal wants pleasure. It wants survival. It wants survival. So to survive, you'll do animalistic things, right? But this is something much different than that, right? This is ideological. It's driven by, right? That's what, in other words, the intelligence becomes not a mother of refinement of the character of the person. It becomes just to gain the goal that you want, right? And that's the problem. This now, if a Torah scholar is refined like a tree, then you can learn from him, because his emotional makeup is an appropriate emotional makeup. In other words, his Torah teachings affected him in such a way that he is refined, and therefore, because he's refined, that's a person to learn from. But someone who learns and what they're learning doesn't refine them, it doesn't change them, right? So there's nothing to learn from that person, because the whole point of the learning is that you change ultimately, right? As the old story goes.
You destroy them if you.
And metaphorically, they are destroyed. They destroyed themselves in a sense, right? Metaphorically. In other words, meaning here, the sage is saying, don't learn from them anything. There's nothing to learn from them. Nothing to take from them. The one who is fruit-bearing tree, you can take the fruits from them. Because there's something you can digest from them. There's something that you can ingest from them, because they are living what they preach, right? So learn and value to really, right, yeah. This is what the Rebbe explains. So those engaged in Torah study must remember that study alone is insufficient. After all, intellect is prone to change, right? Intellect can roam, right? And so there is no guarantee that after leaving the cocoon of study, they will remain connected to Torah. To ensure immutability, one must study Torah in a way that implants it in their heart. Then regardless of the person's situation, he or she will remain forever connected to the source of life, Torah and mitzvahs. This is beautiful. And therefore, a person is like a tree in the field, right? And it's very necessary that, we make sure that what we learn, that we embrace, and it becomes a part of us. So Shabbos,
Good luck.
we were bringing here, for those who remember, many of you were here, and I made a hachlata, and I didn't know this sicha yet, but I made this hachlata. Anybody remember what my hachlata was?
I remember that they asked you, but I don't have a response.
Was that your resolution?
Yeah. What was my resolution? Who remembers?
No, we
Not
didn't
to
do
make
your
a
resolution.
resolution.
I said it.
You did.
Yeah.
My resolution's always.
Huh?
You said it immediately after the question was asked.
No, I said it when I was standing up there. I said.
You did.
Give us a clue already. What it is.
We all
So I
have-
said I teach, right? And particularly Chassidus in the morning before davening. But it's very easy to learn something and not to implement it and make it a part of you. And I wasn't, and this before I learned this sikha. Before I learned this. Therefore, I made a resolution that after I learn in the morning, that I'm going to meditate and contemplate upon the teachings and how to implement an element of it into my life. And this is now today, look what the Rebbe sent me. To further, and I wrote that to the Rebbe today, being today is my birthday. So I wrote that in my pan today when I wrote to the Rebbe, the resolution, a resolution that I'm going to meditate upon what I'm learning in the morning, what I teach in the morning, and that I should think about it, that it should not just be a teachings, but it should be something that, will resonate within me and will sense it sort of viscerally and therefore emotionally, to touch the emotions, and that to make it real. Because when you study, when you study Torah, and especially when you study Hasidic teachings, you talk, speaking about God, well, it's abstract. And abstract ideas, even though they may resonate with us, like right now, we learned something and it resonated with us. Wow, my intelligence is a mother to give birth, to refine me. So what I learn is gotta it's gotta touch me emotionally. It's gotta touch me and shape and mold my emotions. That touches every single one of us because we hear the truth of that, right? We get that and we appreciate it and we're inspired by it. But the problem is inspiration is an intelligent thing. It's not really touching the emotions. Touching the emotions is that we got to own it. And the way to own it is that when you learn something, that you go over it in such a way that you're thinking about it, you try to, take a point of it and make it real for you, not just an abstract idea, but somehow make it that it will mold and shape the emotional makeup of who we are. Because in the end, that's the person. That is the individual that it molds and shapes us. So yes, it may not mold and shape us entirely. Let's be quite frank. In other words, so for me, by nature, I'm lazy. So what do I do for my laziness? I can meditate upon it not to be emotionally, lazy, or I could create a behavioral pattern, not an emotional pattern, but a behavioral pattern that I've got obligation 7:05 to teach Hasidus, 7:30 to daven with a minyan, 8:30 to learn Chumash Rashi, 9:30 to do Tanya, after that to do Rambam, and then and all these other things that right.
Where does
So-
the lazy come?
Huh? No.
Do
Oh,
you schedule a
so when
lazy?
but that's all behavioral in my actions that I create, that I don't have that much opportunity to be lazy. Huh?
I believe you'd like to be lazy. But you've never given yourself permission.
No, I'm not, whatever. Anyway, my point is that that's not my point. That's not my point. My point is, am I emotionally not lazy? I don't know. Maybe I've refined it from what I was. Fine. But is there still some component of it? Yes. That it doesn't mean that you have to change emotionally entirely. If you create the proper structure that you shouldn't be lazy, right? For myself, I can be lazy, but for another, I can't. So if I have an obligation to teach a class, I can't be lazy, right? If I only have an obligation to me, that's very easy to be lazy, right?
Except.
Okay. So you have to create, so that's what I do. I have created obligations that therefore makes it very hard for me to actualize the laziness. Emotionally, maybe I still am on some level, right? But behaviorally, I'm not. So did it truly affect me emotionally? Maybe to some degree it did, some degree for sure, because if you fake it, you'll finally make it, right? You fake it long enough, so then you'll make it. That's true. The Alter Rebbe had a chassid that came to him. A chassidim came and said, Rebbe, this chassid, he dresses very piously and he acts very piously, but we know what's going on inside of him emotionally. He's not the real thing. So the Alter Rebbe said, may his end come to him like that, who, those who act like they're poor. So he got very frightened. Oh, wait, like they felt that he was like the Alter Rebbe cursed him. So they asked Rebbe, we didn't mean to do anything bad to him. We just wanted you to be aware, No. So if you act poor when you're not, and you go around asking for tzedakah, right? So the Torah tells you that in the end you'll become poor. In other words, whatever you act, you'll become. So that's what he's saying. He's acting like a chassid. Don't let him be his envy. That he'll be a chassid. He'll act enough that way. He'll be it. So the same thing is with us. I behave enough that I'm not lazy. So it maybe, or better, that you get easily frustrated or angry, right? You have that trigger, but you create boundaries for yourself that you can't get to that trigger. Are you capable of being triggered? Yes, but you create the boundary that you shouldn't get triggered. Did you really refine yourself? Probably not. Maybe somewhat. But because you don't allow yourself to even get to that trigger, because you've created a boundary that this person who triggers me, I don't talk politics with them. They're not even in the left field anymore. They're so left, right? And then when they talk, I go bananas. So I create a boundary. I don't talk with them politics. Actually, we just had someone like that visiting us who was beyond the pale. So guess what? Got along amazing because we didn't talk any politics. So you create a boundary. Now, if you would have been triggered with that person saying something, you might have been triggered. And emotionally, you would have been, who knows what, right? So are you truly refined? Did you really, your intellect really? No, but if you do it enough times, then eventually, little by little, you're going to become more and more refined in that area. Make sense?
Rabbi, what I'm hearing here is this is dealing with a scenario of where we are now as adults after living how many years and decades. But the question is, how do you try to be preventative so that in as much as possible, the young ones who are coming up, they will still face challenges, but how do they inculcate that kind of mentality and attitude from an early as possible age so that they would not have to deal with the sort of rigors and strife that we would have.
So what,
as we grow.
what, one word. It's called Torah, Torah and mitzvahs.
So start them early then. In other words,
You know,
that's
you
what it
just
is.
start, you study Torah and you do mitzvahs. That itself is doing that work. If every morning you have to get up and put on your tefillin, every morning you have to pray. I'd rather sleep in, but you don't sleep in. What are you doing? What are you doing?
And I'm referring to a young person specifically.
So you, the young person, you're young, right? Don't get fooled by your beard, white beard.
Oh, no,
Don't get fooled by
that's-
your white beard. You're young. You're young. You're young, right? So, well, what are you doing when you'd rather sleep in, but you get up and you come to shul to daven? Means you're giving yourself over to what God wants rather than what you want. Right? If you'd rather sleep and you don't, right? So you're giving yourself over to what Hashem wants. That's called refinement. There's no greater refinement. And if that's how you train your children, that you do what Hashem wants, right? So, and you train them that way. So then they're not going to be beasts. They're not going to be animals in a jungle. They're going to be beautifying God's garden. And that's what we have to do. That's what we have to make sure. It's wonderful that we have, a dozen people online over here, amazing, and there's more on YouTube and on Facebook that are watching the class, and there's just over half a dozen that are here, beautiful, amazing. So maybe we have about, with everybody all told, 30, 40 people that are listening live, and then afterwards there are going to be another probably 50 people that will be watching, that watch it throughout the week. So imagine less than 100 people. It should be, this should be 10x, 100x, 1000x, right? It should be. So we got to get the word out there. More people learning Torah, and then we're going to change the world for good, right? You hear that? Next week, there's not going to be a dozen people here online. In Peru, we're going to get more people, in Baltimore and New Jersey and Texas and Germany, New York, Ohio. Oh, and Montreal. Jonathan from Montreal is here. And all of you, you're going to bring someone next week. Sharon already has her designated target. I didn't ask for promises. I want action. No promises. You just bring the goods. No, don't try your best, because your best could fail. Just do what you got to do.
Kidnapper. That's it, kidnapper.
All right, folks. Any questions, comments? Thank you. God bless you all.
So chat about, there were 10 chats.
What?
There were 10 chats. Did you check?
Oh, there were chats here.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
They're giving brachas. Thank you for all the blessings. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, I'm giving everybody a bracha.
Happy birthday.
My birthday is just ending. So the
Birthday,
gates of
Rabbi.
heaven are still open. The night goes after the day with sacrifice. So may Hashem give each and every one of you a year of blessings and success beyond your imagination, that you should have everything that you need in plenty, with materially and spiritually, and you should engage everything with great joy, gladness of heart, with gesund, with good health, with nachas, that we should have nachas from you, you should have nachas from us, and that we should all be together with the Rebbe leading us out from this exile with Mashiach now. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Happy birthday.
Everybody here says hello. Everybody say hello over here to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
All right. Thank you, folks.